Hello, hello. Thanks for joining us here on the back porch with Feltalala. So I've been working all week on Halloween and where to start. Start with a pumpkin garland, I thought, because what's cuter than a bunch of pumpkins hanging on a garland? So we have this little guy. And the kit would have 10, we'll have enough for you to make 10 of them and to string them on this garland. So we have a lovely pumpkin shape with a stem and some of the little curly, I guess they're also stems. I don't know. I don't know what the botanical name for them is. So we're just going to call them curlicues. So we have the curlicues coming off and we've got them on a nice string of felt. Or of wool, and there will be 10 of them. So other things that we have done this week is a jack-o'-lantern. So really everything that we're starting off with here, making the smaller pumpkin garland, applies to the jack-o'-lantern. Skulls. We're thinking of making, this guy's still in production, we're thinking of making a little skull garland. And then folks can too, they can swip and swap. Skull, pumpkin, pumpkin, skull, whatever like that. And this guy is also still in production. Here we go. We call him Baticus. So much fun. So we're feeling very Halloween today. Let's begin making a pumpkin for our garland. What I'm working on here, you'll have a small white foam sponge in your kit, but as you get into it, you will probably want to buy something larger. So I have this wool buddy that I work with. You can see he's a little worse for wear. He needs a good scrubbing. And then this guy here, folks like to use this for 3D when they're doing 3D products. And this is from Clover. So I think we'll play with this today. Okay, so this is really a 2-color project. We have our pumpkin orange and stem green. And I do have a little black here today because we're going to also, probably in another video, I think so, do the jack-o'-lantern. So here's our little pumpkin ball. Each ball is between 1 and 1 1/4 grams, which I weigh out here. But really, when I think of a gram, I think of pulling off a thumb's worth. So you have the roping. Maybe that guy's got a little extra there, and then you have a thumb's worth, and you pull it. That gives you pretty much a gram and a bit, and that makes this size ball. This guy's a little loose. You can make him tighter, but that works. So how to make a ball, and if you've seen this on a video before, then because so many of our things are just really shapes, right, that we're connecting and decorating. So you can skip forward past the making of a ball, but if not, here we go. We've got a needle, felting needle. I've sent you a 38 star needle. They're needles that I import from Germany, and they're quite beautiful. I love them. Remember, when you're using the needle, it's in and out, in and out. Don't try to bend it. They don't bend, they break. Cautious that you don't stab yourself. You might want to wear a finger protector, a cot. So I just take to begin, and I start folding over. I want it to be fairly firm. So I've made 3 little folds there. And like I say, you can do this into the foam that I've sent. You don't need to have this. I'm just playing with it today. Bought it some time ago and I almost never use it, so thought I'd give it a go. So see, I folded it over, and now felting that in. There are alternate ways to make balls. You can tie a knot in the center and then fold around that. Now I'm going to fold this over. I'm going to do a little turn. A little turn. And see, I'm going to pull these edges, these ends in and around like this. And you can think about the shape that you want your pumpkin to be. I know when I'm in the pumpkin patch and looking for a pumpkin to make a jack-o'-lantern out of, sometimes I want something that's more oblong so that I can make a long face on him. I think that can be fun for Halloween. Sometimes I want that perfect kind of circular pumpkin. Sometimes I want something a little more squat. So pumpkins aren't perfect circles. They're roundish. You want to make yours roundish. And for this garland, like I say, I've sent you enough for 10. So if you're making 10, you can make them a variety of shapes. All kind of circular, probably. It's up to you. If you want a cube, you go for it. Make yourself a cube pumpkin. What I'm not loving about this here is that it's grabbing on the ends. You see how it's grabbing on the ends? I'm not certain that I love that for this guy. So let's put him over to the side. Still, this is a Clover product. Lots of folks really, really enjoy them for doing their 3D sculptures. Maybe once it's more firm, it will pull less, but I'm going to put it aside. I'm going to go back to my mat. As I always say when we're doing circular shapes, you have seen a million balls in your life. So you don't have to think about this too hard. Just keep moving it. And where you see the little out pouchings, tap them in. Tap, 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 tap. And your brain on autopilot should be pretty competent at creating this ball shape. So at this point, we're pretty good. We're pretty firm. So I'm going to use my hands. Hands are often your best felting tool. And I think I'm happy. I'm happy with this. He really is a ball shape. But I can squash him if I want him to be more of that kind of a pumpkin-y. I see I do have some bumps here, which a pumpkin will have, but I'm going to choose to smooth that bump out. And then I'm going to choose a spot that's going to be the top of him. Doesn't really matter too much, but this is a little bumpy, so I think I'm going to choose that. So, and then I'm going to a little more vigorously tap in to create a spot for the stem. And this is going to be my guide. This is going to be my guide for making the stripes in the pumpkin. So I want the bottom to be pretty much even with the top, like that, and about in the center there. So then I will make stripes from one side to the other. So now what I want to do is draw a line. You see in these fellows that we made, right? We've carved in these lines. So we're going to tap, tap, tap in a line. I want to connect here all the way around to here. And as I tap, I am pulling a little bit, but don't pull too hard. You're going to snap your needle. Snap! Don't do that. So push, push, push. And the other thing is that if you just compress it by pulling along it, you're going to have a line, but then that line is going to kind of pop right back out again. So you really do need to felt it in. felt in that line. See, there's a bit of vegetative matter in the wool there. I'm just gonna plop that out. The sheep do live outdoors. We wouldn't want it any other way. So sometimes there are little bits and pieces in your wool. So you just pick them out. Also, the mill that we work with, they work with Canadian farmers, and they use this historic equipment that is very gentle on the wool, and they just very lightly wash it. So there's a little more vegetative matter in it than say fine slivers of wool. You can buy slivers that are more processed. So they have less vegetative matter, but they don't needle felt as well. They're better for wet felting, they're better for spinning, but not for needle felting. For needle felting, what I really, really want is this beautiful rough wool. It's already, very tangled. It's wonderfully soft. And when I say tangled, right? In case you're a beginner, I should have said this at the beginning. In case you're a beginner, what you're doing here by tapping, stabbing, is the little barbs at the end of your needle are grabbing the little barbs in the wool and causing them to entangle with each other. It's just grabbing it and moving it, and so they're becoming entangled. And the rougher wool just felt so much more easily, more smoothly, and also without the kind of needle holes that you end up with in a more processed wool. So it really is my favorite. It does mean vegetative matters. So if you come across some, just pull it out. Okay, we made this line. Now we're going to make another one, finishing up that circle around. And you can put as many stripes in your pumpkin as you want. If you want less, you can do less. I found when I was doing the jack-o'-lantern, I really didn't want so many in the front. So I started on the sides. And then when I had done his face, I added one in the center. And I could add another one here, but I kind of liked him like that. So less for a jack-o'-lantern. More for a decorative cottagecore pumpkin garland. It's not a bad idea to go back around for a second pass. Okay, so now we have 4. So I'm going to go in the center of the ones that we've created already. This makes them pretty reasonably equidistant apart. Gives it some nice symmetry. You don't have to do that. You can do as many stripes as you want. Remember, when you're doing this, the barbs, look at your needle, you can see where the barbs end. So there's no point stabbing beyond that depth. Because the flat needle really doesn't do anything. It's the barbs that are doing all the work. That will also help you not to stab through your mat, not to, if you're holding it, doing it, not to stab through and stab yourself. As I've stabbed him, he's changed a bit from a perfectly round ball, which is fine, as we said. because pumpkins are different sizes, but at this point are different shapes. At this point, I went a little jagged there. At this point, take a look at your pumpkin and see how you want to finesse it, how you want to do the final details. So this fellow's got a bit of a hump on that side. Do I like it? If I don't, I can push that down and I can push this up. So use your hands here to shape him a little bit. You can go back in with the needle, get the shape you want. To define your lines where you feel they need to be defined. The deeper you make your line, and to the wider, the deeper orange it will become as you compress it with the orange behind it. So that'll intensify the orange and give you really some shadow. You decide what level of perfection you want this pumpkin to be. And play with it and finesse it and perfect it to the point that makes you happy. This is about you. Because you make beautiful things. Yes, you do. Okay. So here's our green for the stem. We don't need very much at all. I think that is probably enough. And then here's my method for doing things like stems at this point. It's got a little bit of that vegetable matter in him, vegetative matter. Okay, so I have this little piece of green. Do not stab yourself. Maybe have that point sticking out rather than in towards your hand. Okay, so I'm going to pinch that here, and then I'm going to start rolling it. And as I roll it, I'm going to use this hand to make the bottom tight. And then holding one end, I'm going to roll it through my fingers on the other end. And I'm going to do that again the other side. Hold and roll. Twist. Kind of felting with my hands there. So now I've got it fairly firm onto and I just pull it off like that. And that gives me a nice cylindrical shape. I can roll it in my hands to make it a little bit firmer. And then I look at it and I think, okay, so what end is the top and which end is the bottom? I want the bottom, I want to have things a little loose on the bottom so that I can felt it in. And I also want to create that little stumpy, you know, when you look at a pumpkin, it's a little stumpy on that end. So in this case, I don't think there's a wrong choice, but I think I'm going to do it this way. So now, be careful with your fingers, maybe wearing a guide. I'm just going to top in a bit. Got rid of it. Okay, so carefully, slowly, gently, in case needle does meet skin, slowly, gently, carefully, tap, 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 so that I have a top to the stem where it was cut from the vine. Okay, and then this bottom you see is a little bit loose, and I'm going to pull it out a little bit to make it even more loose. Bottom. Then I have that top that I made. So I'm going to tap this in. One of my favorite things about felting is that I don't now have to go and get a needle and thread. I don't have to bring in other tools to attach pieces of our sculptures. We're still using the needle and we're just tapping it in. So we're entangling the fibers of the stem with the fibers of the pumpkin. It's just glorious. So satisfying. I'm going to tap it in all around. I'm going to try to bring extra in to make that kind of thick bit where the stem meets the pumpkin. Okay, so there's my pumpkin and his little stem. Now, I've decided I want him a little, I'm going to have a little bit more of that thickness right where he attaches. Okay, now for the fun part. It's all fun. Okay, so in order to make these little curlicues, you can take a toothpick, you can take a stir stick, you can take a skewer, and then you take your green, take a piece of your green, and just pull off a thin thread of it. And then twist this. And where it's thick, you can pull it a little bit and twist it, all very gently. You're almost kind of beginning to spin it a little bit, barely, but sort of. Okay, so I have this end. And then we're going to wrap this. Let's start on this end. We're going to wrap it around the skewer, the handle of a paintbrush, anything that's thin. So I'm wrapping it, and you can twist and pull as you're wrapping. Then run this under some water, just from the tap, just to get it wet. Just get it wet and then leave it to dry. So that's what I did with these 3 this morning. And they're fully dry now. It's a very small amount. So, oops. So they dried rather quickly. And then I'm going to just take it off of there. It seems to have stuck to this end. So I'm going to try going off the other side. There's a little, oh, I see. There's a little edge there. This guy does not really want to come off easily. There we go. Got it. You see? A little boing. A little boingy. Little boingy. Okay, so let's try pulling him off of this one and see what we think about this guy. This one's a little thicker, giving you a thicker curl. And you can decide based on what you like best. You can use the stick that I've sent, use something thicker, use something thinner. And there's off the skewer. So there's skewer, more of a thicker stir stick, and that's the little toothpick level one. I think that they would all work beautifully. If you do have ends that are a little fuzzy, I would just take them off. I like, when I'm doing something like this, I like to do it in 3s. I think 3 odd numbers are more visually appealing to us, so I'm going to want 3 little curlies coming off of my pumpkin. So, and I don't want it to be too short. I did some that were shorter. When it's shorter, they kind of boing up. So I want them to boing down a little bit. So not too short, but each stick should make enough for at least one pumpkin. And you can pull it too, right? You want it to boing a bit more. Just a little bit. And then tap, 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 tap that in. Doesn't take too much, just a few little tappies. And then I'm going to cut him there. I'm going to put a third one in. Okay, so there's my 3 curlicues off of my adorable little pumpkin. I think we have achieved adorable here on many levels. That was the goal today. Let's be adorable. So to attach that to your garland, so I've gone, you can see, equidistant apart on the garlands. And a good way to do that, to measure it, is I'm about to do one here. So just going to pull it from the last one, see where it lands. So right there is where I want it to go. I also like, for balance on the pumpkin, for balance on the garlands, to go on the bottom side of the stem, and then the top side of the stem, and then now here it will be the bottom side of the stem. So I like to alternate. I find that makes it balanced. Okay, so that goes there, and once again, it's just a matter of tapping to attach, because the wool, the yarn, is also made out of wool, so it has the barbs that we need to attach it really nicely to the pumpkin. And it is very similar to the color of the stem, enough that you don't really see it. It's just like a continuation of the stem. And there we go. Make 10 of them if you like. Make 8 larger ones, make 12 smaller ones, do whatever it is that you want. But I've sent you enough for 10, and attach them onto the wool, and then you can hang that on with your Halloween decorations. You can keep it and hang it on your winter holiday, Christmas, solstice tree. I hope you had some fun today. Send me pictures, post them in the comments. I would love to see your pumpkins and your jack-o'-lanterns. Happy Halloween. Thank you for joining us here at Feltalala today, and you make beautiful things.